Alright, um, it's been a while since I've been in front of a camera, so bear with me. But yes, a lot of people have been asking what my development setup is, and some maybe tips and tricks and some plugins I use and so on and so forth. I decided to just make a video going through all of them. Well, if you would want to start from my actual desktop setup, I have a regular old desktop PC, as a few audio monitors in front of me. I have a microphone attached to a Focusrite Scarlett, which is a preamp. I think that's the word. And then I have a Logitech Stream Cam for that crisp quality. I usually rock two monitors, but I'm more than fine rocking one. I should actually upgrade from my monitors because I currently use a ultra wide monitor and I really don't like it anymore all that much. I would just prefer a 27-inch single monitor. But yeah, let's get started. The first thing and the most important thing in my setup is my terminal interface. I've been running Linux for a while, and I have bound the terminal interface so that I can launch it from just pressing Windows key and enter. And as I press it, I yeah, I had some audio problems there. As I press it, I get the terminal opened up, and I get them nicely piled up due to a window manager called i3. I run Manjaro Linux on my desktop machine. Let's zoom it in a bit so you don't have to be squinting. And with Manjaro Linux, I have been really happy with it because I used to be a Ubuntu user, but just handling the packages and everything with Ubuntu can be a pain. Manjaro gives you really the freedom of Arch Linux. I've never used Arch Linux like raw, but it really gives you the freedom. And since you can use the AUR, you can get packages really easily. The regular install commands for Manjaro are pacman, so it's basically the same as apt-get. But there's also a thing called Yay, which is it's a package manager of sorts, and I could just install something with Yay-S, and I could, let's say I want to install, let's see, Chrome for example. I think it's like Google Chrome, and we can also already see all these packages we could install straight from the command line, and we don't have to be handling any repositories. There's a huge variety of stuff, and I can just run Yay-S something, and it almost always is available there. And for my terminal itself, I use Alacrity. Alacrity is a GPU enhanced terminal emulator, and it's really easy to config. It's just a one YAML config file with not much like setup to begin with. Like if you want to have custom colors, of course you have to configure them, but other than that, it's really easy to set them up. And what else? Oh right, yeah, I have Tmux. I'm using Tmux for basically just handling sessions. Tmux is a terminal multiplexer, which it's kind of like tabs in your terminal, but it's a bit more versatile than just having tabs in your terminal. And you might have seen at the bottom of the screen that I have two tabs already open here, and we have the agenda in the other tab. So I can just go through these tabs however I want. I have the trigger for my Tmux actions bound to Control B. So I will just press Control B and N and get this and get this. Actually, let's see if I have screen keys. Nope, screen keys isn't installed. Let's see if I could install it, because that would help you with seeing what I'm doing over here. So let's see. Let's gonna install it, and it. Okay, yeah, I think it's just like a packages not being up to date. let's give it a second while we do something else. So we were talking about Tmux. In Tmux, it's really easy to configure stuff. For example, well, I want to do a bit more configuration with my setup. So your configuration might be even smaller than this. And you can get like ready-made themes for Tmux, for example, airline themes and everything. If you've ever used terminal themes, airline should be familiar to you. And I have just a few like color themes here and a few settings for my Tmux to handle around. And I've also bound the Tmux settings so I can rebind my panes, or I could select a pane, or I could just like split the window however I want it. So for example, if I did, let's see, this, I could split it vertically, and if I did this, I could spread it horizontally, or vice versa. I'm not really sure which one is which all the time. And I could just easily switch up between these sessions, and it works like a charm. And all of these are just like Control B and some letter on the keyboard. Let's see if, yep, it hasn't updated. Oh, there's a huge update coming, so okay, let's just leave it there. But as you can see, with Tmux, I am able to just run a update process somewhere and just switch to somewhere else and do anything really I want to do. And it's really fast to get used to the Tmux bindings, and you can bind them anywhere you want really, and it's really easing your workflow. I have a few Tmux plugins that I like to use. There's Tmux Resurrect and Tmux Continuum, and what they basically do is when I open up my when I restart my computer, I want to have my Tmux configurations restored. So if I had some windows open, some splits open or anything, I want them to be there even after I restart my computer. And with Tmux Resurrect and Continuum, it automatically starts up the Tmux instance for me, and it retrieves the last session of Tmux I had, and I have everything that I had before, and I can just use it as ever I want. And if I would want to, for example, browse my Tmux sessions right now, I could see that most of the projects I'm working on right now can be browsed through here. And for example, in Chart.js projects, I have 3 terminal windows open for different kinds of things, and I don't have to set them up every time I restart my computer. And just changing between the projects is really easy. You can just like hit a key binding and then just start it. And yep, it's not installed yet. Actually, it might be soon, so we might be getting screen keys here. And that's really all I have for Tmux. And like for anybody who has been using tabs on terminal, I would really recommend looking into learning Tmux, because it really makes it a lot faster to navigate through different projects and to handle them all around in general. Especially if you're a Vim user, it's really nice. So going away from Tmux, let's see, what else did we have on the menu? Yeah, the terminal we already went through, it's Alacrity. And then we are going to get into the juicy stuff, which is Neobeam. I switched to Neobeam a bit over a year ago, I think. I'm one of those old people who are like, I remember when I had to build Neobeam from the source and battle with it, and we didn't have any app images we could just run. I wanted to use Neobeam 0.5 as soon as it came out, because it had the LSP support, so language server support. And to do that, at the time I wanted to do it, it really required you to build from the source to get the latest version. But it doesn't require you to do that anymore, so if you want to get started with Neobeam, it's easier than ever right now. Going into my vimrc, you might see that I'm just typing vim, but if we would go to my bashrc, we can see that I have aliased vim to Neobeam, because I just don't can't be asked to write the N into Vim all the time. So if we want to look at my regular old VimRC, it's just some regular Vim settings. I think like this part is something that a lot of people have, like give or take a few options, but there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people use, for example tab stops and shift widths and no wraps and etc. I have mapped my leader to space because I like to, let's put those on. I like to map my leader to space because it's like handy for both of my hands to reach space at any time, and it's like something I just got used to. And I use my leader key for most of my key bindings. For my color scheme I have Pink Mare, which is a color scheme created by myself, shameless plug, and a few options. I really like to split my Vim options to different files, so I have like status line and tab line and Neobeam stuff all separate. I have some dev icons, so if I would open the nerd tree I would see icons here. That's called dev icons, and you can just find nerd tree dev icons really easily online and get all of these into your project. You might also see the dev icons here on the file ending. The status bar is something I wrote myself. It's really not that hard when you just like look at other status bars online. A few formatting things I have for my Niobium configuration. So every time I save a file with one of these endings, I do a do format, which is just the Vim LSB formatting the file for me. There's just a few checks. For example, I could toggle formatting off if I wanted to. I would say use formatting equals 0 and it wouldn't format anymore. And that's for projects where the formatting is a bit different. I don't want to F it up when I come there. And there's also a toggle formatting command I made to make it easier to remember. I have a few remaps here for some of the popular libraries. For example, when I want to format a JavaScript file, I just press space FF, or just like FF actually in normal mode, and it should do the formatting and save the file after that. Then there's some LSP functionality. For example, go to definition. We can get these later when we look at JavaScript code. We have K to get some hover actions. So if you would hover around a keyword, you would see what it does. We have Control K to get signature health when you're writing function calls. RN, leader RN, if you want to rename something in your project. EE, explain error. If there's an error on my project, I want to see it in a different window so I can actually read it if it's a long error. Also show error, so it just goes to the next error on the project file. Then I just have some bindings for buffer next and buffer previous. I don't really use them all that much. I have some resizing things, so if I wanted to resize these, I could just easily press space plus, space minus, and it would resize these. I don't really work with a lot of panes. I'm a one-screen man, so I don't really do that. And there's just some general setup. You don't really need to look into this all that much. Well, if you would want to, one thing that you might be interested in is like the Vim commentary plugin, so you could just like comment something and just uncomment it at will with a key binding. So those could be something of interest to you, but other than that, I don't know really. Let's go into my plugins. As you might have seen, the navigation plugin I used here. It's really nice. I can just find files. I can find live grep, so I could just like find plug. And I have a preview window there, and I could just go through my buffers or go through my history. I could there's a lot of options here. It's a plugin called Telescope. It requires a few Neobeam plugins, but it's really worth it. It gives you a lot of these code finding actions, and it's blazingly fast nowadays. Other than that, I have of course my themes installed. I have a Neobeam tree seeder installed, which is a tool library that gives you really effective syntax highlighting. It does a AST from the project, and it colors them properly based on that instead of just like syntax stuff. And it's really nice to have actual good code colors in Niobium. I haven't installed one for Vim script, so that's why we don't have it here. Then we have some functional plugins. I have Nerd Tree, which is the tree you see here. So it's a navigation tree which can be used to browse files on your Vim project. Then I have Vim Fugitive, which is a Git interface for Vim. You could use it to, for example, if we modified a file, we could open up Fugitive and we would see unstaged files here, and we could do all of our Git operations through it. We have Nerdtree tabs, which is just a helper library for Nerdtree. We have close tag, which automatically creates the closing tags for HTML files or HTML code. And we have Vim Surround, which is one of my favorite plugins. For example, if we want to change these surrounding backticks to double quotes, we could just press, let's see, we actually could install screen key now, let's see, so you can actually follow along. Let's see, screen key, oh come on, just don't demo on me. Yes, screen key, perfect. So, it's a bit big, but bear with me. So, if I want to change this these single quotes to double quotes, we could go like change surrounding single quotes to double quotes. And as you can see, the single quotes have moved to double quotes. We could do the same thing backwards, change surrounding double quotes to single quotes. And it's really easy to use, and it's really effective, for example, when you are working with JavaScript and you are like, oh, this needs to be a template string, you can be like, change surrounding single quotes to backticks, and it's a template string from now on. It's really nice. Then we have some LSP stuff. The LSP is really the juiciest powerhouse here, and it's the thing that powers up the completion engine and diagnosis engine and so on and so forth. There's a configuration plugin called LSP config by the Neobeam team, which really gives you some sensible defaults for using the LSP in Neobeam. You should start by installing that. Then there's a few other plugins you might want to install. Nvim Compy, that's done by this guy, is a completion library that gives you completion hints in your code, and it's really effective, really fast, and it's really customizable, and it's really fun to use. That's if you want to have code completions with your LSP, which is the biggest reason a lot of people install the LSP, you should use Nvim Comp for that. Then there's a few others. There's a LSP status, LSP kind. These are just for giving status information and code information and showing errors in your code, really. Then if you're a Java user, Nvim JDTLS is a better version of the language server usage for Java language server. Then there's the telescope we went through. There's the dev icons for basically these icons here. And then there's a few others for Markdown. For example, Markdown preview allows you to have Markdown files which you can preview on the browser as you go. I could show you that. So if we have a browser window and we have a readme file, we could go Markdown preview and we could just preview the file instantly on our browser. And it even updates automatically. And it's really neat. So let's close that one up. Let's wait for screen key to go away. Then we have some web dev plugins we have here. We have Vim template readers for lit HTML templates. It really helps you get the code the right color when you are using the HTML templates in lit. Vim CSS color, when you're working with CSS, you might want to have like the color code actually show up on the editor, so it like colors your hex color codes with the color of the hex color. It's really nice. Then there's Neo format, which is a formatting library. I mostly use it to run prettier from the Vim command line itself, and it's really neat. Then for some closure stuff, I have a conjure installed and autopaste installed, but those are just for closure, and I don't think anybody reads closure who like is going to watch this, so I'm not going to go into them. Then I have just a few other libraries I don't really use all that much. So that's all of my libraries, and I will be linking this into the description, so don't you worry about if you missed something. Then let's get into actual workflows. So when I start doing something in my editor, I turned off screen keys because it was disturbing. I would, for example, if I want to go to let's go to Web Component DevTools. It's a project in which I have a JS config file. So I have told the project that I want to use TypeScript type hints. I would just open up my Vim and usually open up the file tree to maybe see where I'm at. But usually I just use my telescope plugin, which I can trigger by Ctrl N, and then I could just find the file I want to use. For example, if I want to modify something in DOM actions, I could just write DOM actions, get it here, and start analyzing. As you can see, the code highlighting and all of the colors are really nice because of the tree seeder. If we didn't have the tree seeder, it would be a bit less. And some of the LSP features that we get from the Neobeam LSP, one of the bigger ones is the go-to definition. For example, here we have a method call. I can just press GD and I will jump into the definition of that function. And if I want to see where this function is used, I could just press GR, get references, and I could see all of the places this function is being called from. It really helps you because you can just easily navigate your code without having to like search for occurrences in the code yourself. So GD to go to the definition and GR to see where else this is being used. And if I'm correct, you could even use it from this end too, so you can see other places using the same functionality. So if you're like, for example, deleting code, you can easily find all of the references to the code block you're using. This is all powered by your TS server, so the TypeScript language server, and it's really easy to install all of those because like let's see, Neobeam LSP here. There's a documentation site on the Neobeam site that really tells you how to install any of these LSP servers and how to set them up. So it's really easy to get started with these, and it's not really cumbersome. It's minimal setup and everything just starts working after that. I'll try to link this also. And I could even search here, so if I knew I want to get something from DOM actions, I could just like narrow it down to there, and then I could just navigate my code as I would in a real IDE. Another thing you might have noticed is these. So we have this error message or warning message showing up inline in my editor. That's a built-in functionality from the Neobeam LSP config, and it's enabled by default, and it's really nice because if I would have an actual error, I would see them all here listed out nicely. For some reason, I'm not getting my status bar updated correctly. This should be something else. And we can see immediately where the errors are, and if I would use my binding to explain error, it would give it to me in a pop-up window here too. And it's really useful when the error is really long, for example in TypeScript errors. Then it also warns me about some inferred types because I'm using like JSDoc and TypeScript typing. And then we can get into the next cool thing, which is code actions. So I have bound code actions to space enter. I used to use IntelliJ, which has like alt enter, so it's really familiar to me. And when I press space enter, I can get code actions on my screen immediately. And I can see that it's from TS server, and I can see what it wants to do. So infer types from usage. Just by pressing enter, I can get TS server giving me the whole code action. Same thing you would get in VS Code, because the TS server is the exact same thing that VS Code uses, so you're getting basically the same language server functionality as VS Code is getting. It's just that easy. And there's you could do that to other stuff too. For example, if we want to call a function called call foo, it would tell us can find call foo, add mission function and declaration, ignore this message, disable checking from this file. Ignore this message would just add a ts ignore, or just add missing function. It would add it, and then we could find it here. Yeah, it just creates our function for us. So all of these IDE features and IDE/VS Code features are at your fingertips, thanks to the TS server. And when I'm in my regular workflow, I usually just work with one screen. I don't have it this zoomed in normally, but I usually work with one screen. But I also like to use tabs. For example, if I had something I needed to check, for example, my message types, I could just open it in another tab, and you can see here that I have two tabs. And just by pressing GT, I could just switch between these tabs. And they would, of course, keep their line numbers and everything. And I would be able to just continue with my work. And here too, I can just get the references in my code to see all the usages here. So it works everywhere in my code. And getting into a completion, we can see that if we are in JavaScript, for example, we can really easily get the completions in our editor, and even get the information and documentation about the functions we are about to call. And we can use the function calls there, and we can get all kinds of information we want. For example, here, when we want to run cure sector, we can just press Control K, and we would get the type hints here, or the I don't remember what it's called, but they're basically the information we need here. And also here we press Shift K, we get the actual documentation of the object, and it works with context. So if you're in JavaScript, you can get all of the document stuff, of course, but it also works with your functions too. So if I have the call function there, I of course get it here, and it even tells me if it's a function or a constant and where it got it from. For example, if it got it from the buffer or the LSP. And all of these are provided by the TS server, so all of these are up to date all the time, as long as your TS server is up to date. And for a regular workflow, I would of course have Vim open in one of my Tmux panes, but as we went through the other Tmux stuff, let's see, I have panes here. I could have, for example, a example project running here. I could have another Tmux pane that is just running npm run build watch. So I could easily just have all of these things running in the same terminal window without any hitch from my tabs. And this is solely because of Tmux. And if I want to, for example, change to another project, I would want to do some chart.js stuff, I could just leave it on the background. It's still running there. It's still running here, and it hasn't gone anywhere. I can just switch up sessions and it all just functions properly. So that's the real power of Tmux right here. And yeah, I think that's all for like all of the stuff I usually do in my setup. Like, if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them, like in the comments or in Slack, where I'm most likely going to be posting this. But I hope this was a good, thorough walkthrough on like how my dev setup works, and I could like help you get set up and give you some links on how to get set up like this if you are interested. But for now, I would like to say thanks, everybody, and I hope this was informative. Peace.